What's up guys, Jared here. So check this out. It's called the Ecoo E04 Aurora Plus. Now the Plus is because this version has 3 gigs of RAM and the non-Plus version only has 2. So I'm gonna start out with a quick rundown of the specs because I think you're really gonna be surprised. So first off, it's running almost completely stock Android 5.0 Lollipop right out of the box. It's got a 5.5 inch 1080p display, a 16 megapixel camera, pretty sure it's interpolated though, an 8 megapixel front facing shooter, 3000 milliamp hour removable battery, a MediaTek 64-bit MT6752 octa-core CPU with a Mali T760 GPU, and a home button that not only copies Samsung's look, but also has a fingerprint scanner that worked really well the first several times I used it, but now for some reason just refuses to work at all. More on that later. Now the overall cosmetic design isn't too bad actually. Although the band running around the plastic side isn't real metal but instead plastic, it does give it that sort of modern smartphone look to it. Now the whole thing feels surprisingly solid when held. No plastic or creaking or anything like that. But one thing that does bug me is the buttons on the side. They're just a little too mushy, but it's not like they're not reactive or anything. Really, I'm more nitpicking than anything. But yeah, overall build quality gets a thumbs up from me. It actually feels like a much more expensive phone than it is. So anyways, Android 5.0. You know, it's funny, a lot of, if not most, China phone manufacturers apparently discovered that consumers just really like stock Android, and it's easier and more cost effective for them to just load stock Android and add a few arguably useful features and call it a day. And that's what we have here, an almost completely stock Android experience. It's kind of like having a Google Play Edition China phone. Jumping into the app drawer, we've got some pretty handy apps preloaded for us, like App Lock, which can take advantage of the Fingerprint Reader, Direct, which has a lot of awesome and potentially really useful gestures you can enable or disable, and Smart Wake, which gives you a bunch of screen off gestures like double tap to wake and drawing a circle to access the camera. And because it's a MediaTek CPU, in the display settings, we've got MediaTek's Mirror Vision Display Tweaker app, which allows us to make some pretty serious display adjustments. Now, my personal preference is setting the picture mode to vivid and enabling the dynamic contrast to give the color a little more punch. In the sound and notification settings, while we may have a severe lack of acceptable ring and notification tones, we do have the standard sound enhancement settings that we've seen in many China phones in the past, which is always welcomed. And thanks to those arguably beastly internal specs, performance has been simply awesome. Everything loads up fast, there's no stuttering, no action hangs, and it handles game like a champ. And depending on which game, there's very little to no frame loss. Honestly, I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but I have to say, I am quite impressed with the performance. Getting into the Fingerprint Reader, you can add up to 10 fingerprints, which is awesome. Just pick the hand and finger you want to register, and away you go. That being said, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I've been having a real hard time getting it to work anymore. It just refuses to register my fingerprints for some reason now, but when it works really well. Not Galaxy S6 or iPhone 6 well, but well enough for this phone's price range. The loudspeaker looks like it's a dual speaker setup, but in reality it's actually a mono speaker setup, which unfortunately doesn't get very loud. Thankfully though, if you download the MTK Engineer Mode app from the Play Store, you can adjust various aspects of some hardware, such as the speakers, and actually increase its max volume. Now, in-call volume through the headset speaker is pretty good and actually surprisingly clear and warm sounding. Now, the rear-facing 16 megapixel camera is definitely interpolated. From what though, I don't know. I also have no clue whether it's a Sony or a Samsung camera, but one thing's for sure though, it takes adequate photos and videos. Nothing more, nothing less. For what it is, it handles low light okay, but it's lacking in tack sharp focus and colors look either a little too saturated or simply washed out. Now thankfully, it's running the standard China phone camera app that we've all seen in the past, so you've got plenty of manual controls and filters to enhance the shot before you take it. And finally, battery life's been pretty good, but for a 3000 milliamp hour battery with heavy use, I was a little disappointed at the screen on time of just under 3 hours. But with my regular usage, I was blown away with it, achieving around an easy 5 hours of screen on time, with some days as high as 6.5 hours of screen on time. So battery life gets another thumbs up from me. However, even though MediaTek's MT6752 CPU is capable of quick charging, for some reason it's been disabled in this phone, which means standard charging times, unfortunately. So all that being said, guys, for the price, this is a really nice phone. It's got great performance, great display, great battery life, 2 decent cameras, a fingerprint reader, and Android 5.0 Lollipop. All that for $189 from my friends over at pandawill.com. But if you use my link and coupon code in the description below, you'll get $10 off at checkout for a limited time. Well, that's it for this one. Hopefully you liked this video. If you did, shoot me some love and hit that like button. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well. But thanks as always for watching, and I'll talk to you all in the next one. Cheers.